Hello, my name is Valerie Cook. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my exceptional children articles that I read this semester. Uh, with my top five, I'm going to start with Autism Spectrum Disorder Research by Derek Polishuk. Sorry, it's kind of a crazy last name. My third article, third on my list, but second I'm going to talk about is Self-Management Strategies to Support Students with ASD or Autism Spectrum Disorder by Schultz. My next one will be Whole Group Response Strategies to Promote Student Engagement in Inclusive Classroom by Sarah N. and Sarah H. and some others. Next, I will be talking about sibling caregivers of people with intellectual and development disabilities, socio-demographic characteristics and material hardship prevalence by R. Somick and S. Parrish and some others as well. And then last but not least, I will be talking about sexuality education intervention for parents of children with disabilities, a pilot training program by K. Clados and M. Isar. Okay. So for the Autism Spectrum Disorder research article, my first grow I'm going to start talking about is this title was kind of misleading because I thought it was just going to talk about the disability and things it comes with and how it affects people and parents maybe or even children at school. It did start out about what ASD is. These students or children or even adults have difficulties in social interactions and nonverbal communications. They have restricted and repetitive patterns of behavior, but they have generally normal linguistic and cognitive development. And then this is why this was my grow, because it started talking about music teachers. And the rest of this article is about music teachers and music classrooms and how students have problems in these rooms. It talked about how these students in music classrooms have such problems because there's so much going on, there's music, and they're doing something different every day, and feels like spur of the moment kind of things for them. And it really throws them off and gets them unorganized and can even cause bad behavior because of the differences in the room. So it talked about how these children are affected by these rooms, and then it talked about how students need to be prepared and they need to have no surprises and they need to have the same teacher, and if not the same teacher, then they need to have two teachers with the same strategies, like the exact same things. And then talked about taking small steps for learning, just working really hard on each little tiny step, and then when they get that step, they are good to move on. And then it talked about, or introduced a teach strategy, which was intentionally structured room. 2 was a visual schedule. 3 was explanation of type and length of the work they would be doing, and instructions to be visual and verbal. This could help with not only children with ASD, but it could help with any room. I think this would be a great room for any organization or any classroom. It would help every student. So that was kind of my grow for this article as well, is that it could be used in other rooms, not just a music room. Moving on to my next article, which was Self-Management Strategies to Support Students with ASD. I know I found a lot on ASD with this online database. I really liked this article. It was really interesting. It started with self-management, which they said was a set of procedures that students can be taught to apply to change their own behavior. Hang on, let me find my notes. These students can observe, assess, and modify their own behavior, and then they can self-identify and observe a targeted behavior that they would like to change, or that the teacher and the student or parents even agreed to work on. This strategy is very positive for students academically, socially, and just anyway. This article showed many graphs and pictures and showed the activities that they would use to change their behavior. I really like that it showed the graphs and charts because I was a little confused just reading how they were trying to change these behaviors, but it showed a chart, and the students would tally whether every 5 minutes or so if they were on task or if they were raising their hand or if they were blurting out. But most of the time it stayed very positive, so the students would kind of be rewarding themselves for the good behavior instead of just focusing on the bad. I really like this because a lot of the times I find in classrooms that teachers are focusing on the bad behavior, and that can always put a student down and not give them confidence to even change their bad behavior. So I really like this article. My only grow was that it was kind of unclear, but the glow was that it had the charts and pictures to make up for that. My next article is Whole Group Response Strategies to Promote Student Engagement in Inclusive Classrooms. I actually got to witness this in one of my observations this semester, so that worked out really well when reading this article. I got to connect. In this article, it talks about students with learning disabilities who have difficulties due to organization, high order thinking, working memory, retention and connections, or anything really. They tend to go to the back of the room or at a table with a few other students who also have disabilities to sit with the teacher and get one-on-one almost help with this teacher, while all those other students are working just by themselves or in other groups with other students. The bad thing about this is that when you're doing whole group work with the whole class, these students with disabilities are missing out. So if they're not sitting at that table with that teacher and those few children, they're not learning anything. So this article talked about how we could fix that problem. I really like the way that they could fix it. The lady who wrote it thought of whole group responses through hand signals or card responses. She would have signals like 1, I understand, or I guess one is like, no, I don't understand, and then 5 is, yes, I understand, I can explain what's going on. So I really like that. She would get a response from the whole class, and it kind of showed studies and how this was working in a classroom. And then card responses was, you could use it in math or for even and odd numbers, or greater than, less than, or yes or no, or true or false. And then she also used colors, red, yellow, and green, to say, like, green, I got it, yellow, I'm okay, and then red, I don't know what's going on. I really like this because not only will it keep the students active, but it's going to keep them like, oh, I've got to pay attention or I'm not going to know what card to hold up. So I really like that. That was really cool, a good idea. I didn't really have a grow. My glow was pretty much the whole article. I just really liked this article. It was very interesting. My next article is Sibling Caregivers for People with Intellectual and Development Disabilities, Socio-Demographic Characteristics and Material Hardship Prevalence. This article talked about intellectual and development disabilities, which they called IDD. I'll just make that a little bit easier for me now. The life expectancy of these people with these disabilities is going up. So that means the caregiver's age is going up. The problem with this is most of the time the caregivers are the parents of these people with disabilities. And they grow old, and then these people with disabilities aren't getting the care that they need because their parents are old, of course, and having a hard time taking care of themselves. So this article introduced putting siblings into the future plan for taking care of this family member with IDD. They wanted to stress this because they've noticed that there's long waiting lists and high costs for residential services across the whole country. So this isn't just in our area, it's all over. But it really stressed my grow for this one was that it really it was just persuasive. It really didn't give me much information. It gave me a little bit of rates and percentages on who has disabilities and whose caregivers and siblings are actually taking good care of them. It's things like that. But it was a good article. It was very interesting, and you usually don't hear about this kind of thing. My last article is Sexual Education Intervention for Parents of Children with Disabilities, a pilot training program. This article I really liked because we never hear about this. We never think about these children with sexual education. Like, that's not really an option. Nobody ever talks about that. So I really like that someone finally thought of this and said something, spoke up about it. But we were starting to see that parents were trying to ignore this too, parents of the children with disabilities, and that can be a very big problem. Parents were going as far as vasectomies and things to just get away from the education, which kind of bothers me because all these special schools, exceptional schools and things are teaching these students life skills. And sexual education and things like that, that should be learned. That's life. That's part of life. So this needs to be learned. I really like this article. It gave me a lot of facts. And at the end, it even talked about workshops for parents who have children with disabilities and they don't know how to lead their children or even talk to their children about sexual education. So this was a really cool article, really good. And definitely parents with children of disabilities, they should really read this. It was a really good article, and it's just good to know for those parents that someone's there for them. But that's all that I have about my articles. Thank you.